Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum dear students. Our today's session is again on Tess of the D'Urberville. We would continue in this session and we would cover phase 4 of the novel that is titled as The Consequence. Well, before I move forward, I would like to share a quick review of the previous session. Our previous session was on phase 3 of the novel Tess of the D'Urberville. We covered chapters 16 to 24 and thus finished phase 3. In doing so, we covered the following aspects. We explored the text of these chapters, we explored related themes, we discussed the development of characters and critically analyzed the selected parts of text to have insights into the themes and into the development of the characters. As far as today's session is concerned, in today's session we will start phase 4 that is titled as The Consequence, as I told you earlier. We will cover chapters 25 to 34 and would thus finish this phase inshallah in today's session. Coming towards the first chapter of this phase, that is chapter 25 in total. Angel is not sure about the nature of his relationship with Tess. He feels that he needs time to understand the nature of this relationship. So he decides to spend a few days away from the dairy visiting his family. As he reaches there at his father's house in Eminster, he finds his parents breakfasting with his brothers, the Reverend Felix, who is a town curate, and the Reverend Cuthbert, who is a college dean at Cambridge. Among his family, Angel has become to seem more like a farmer and behaves less in the manner of a scholar. Angel's family notices Angel's growing social ineptness and they believe that his manners have been affected badly because of the impact of the low-class people he has lived with. On the other hand, Angel feels that his brothers have become mentally limited and comfortable situations have resulted in narrowing their thoughts. So what we notice is that the gap between him and his family is broadening, it is widening. He finds near his father's church a woman wearing a broad-brimmed hat and attempts to avoid her. Actually, this young lady is Mercy Shand. Later we notice that this is the woman his parents hoped him to marry. Anyhow, after breakfast, Angel walks with his brothers and notices how different they are from him. Late in the evening at dinner, Angel's mother, that is Mrs. Clare, tells Angel that she has given away the black pudding that Mrs. Crick sent as a gift to local children, while Angel was anxiously waiting for it on the table. She also comments that they will not drink the mead as well that Mrs. Crick sent, for it is too alcoholic and they never drink spirits at the table on principle. When Angel suggests that he will say to the Cricks that the family enjoyed the gifts, Mr. Clare insists that Angel tell them the truth. Of course, Angel doesn't like this idea and he doesn't want to say this to the Cricks family. As I said earlier, that the gap between Angel and his family is increasing. To show the emerging gap in Angel and his family, I have chosen this part of the text from this chapter. Angel sat down and the place felt like home, yet he did not so much as formerly feel himself one of the families gathered there. Every time that he returned hither, he was conscious of this divergence, and since he had last shared in the vicarage life, it had grown even more distinctively foreign to his own than usual. Its transcendental aspirations, still unconsciously based on the geocentric views of things, Nethal Paradise and Nadril Hell, were as foreign to his own as if they had been the dreams of people on another planet. Latterly he had seen only life, felt only the great passionate pulse of existence, unwrapped, uncontorted, untrammeled by those creeds which futilely attempt to check what wisdom would be content to regulate. So this part of the text we can notice that Hardy is actually using it to voice his own philosophy, and he is criticizing the strict, narrow-minded view of religion and of social setup that would put restrictions on life that people would really find as unwrapped and uncontorted and undisturbed as it takes place, as it is lived in the countryside. On their part, they saw a great difference in him, a growing divergence from the Angel Clare of former times. It was chiefly a difference in his manner that they noticed just now, particularly his brother's. He was getting to behave like a farmer. He flung his legs about. The muscles of his face had grown more expressive. His eyes looked as much information as his tongue spoke, and more. The manner of the scholar had nearly disappeared. This is what they think. Still more the manner of the drawing room young man. It has also gone. This is what they believe in. A prig would have said that he had lost culture and approved that he had become coarse. Such was the contagion of domiciliary fellowship with the Talbothes, nymphs and swains. So the culture in which he has lived in the countryside has affected him, there is no doubt in it. As far as his family is concerned, they think it has affected him negatively. On the other hand, what Angel himself thinks is that he has learned a lot there, and as a result he feels himself alienated from the lifestyle that his family has. I would also like to share the closing text of this chapter, that is chapter 35, because it provides some more insights. This is the scene where the family sits for their dinner, and as Angel came, Mrs. Crix had sent some pudding and some wine as a gift to the family of Angel, and Angel is expecting that to be served here. Let's come to the text. The family sat down the table, and a frugal meal of cold viands was deposited before them. Angel looked round for Mrs. Crick's black puddings, which he had directed to be nicely grilled as they did them at the dairy, and of which he wished his father and mother to appreciate the marvellous herbal savours as highly as he did himself. "Ah, you are looking for the black puddings, my dear boy," observed Clare's mother. "But I am sure you will not mind doing without them, as I am sure your father and I shall not, when you know the reason. I suggested to him that we should take Mrs. Crick's kind present to the children of the man who can earn nothing just now because of his attacks of delirium tremens, and he agreed that it would be a great pleasure to them, so we did." So what the mother of Angel tells him is that the pudding is given to a poor family. "Of course," said Angel cheerfully, looking round for the mead. "I found the mead so extremely alcoholic," continued his mother, "that it was quite unfit for use as a beverage, but as valuable as rum or brandy in an emergency. So I have put it in my medicine closet." "We never drink spirits at this table on principle," added his father. "But what shall I tell the dairymaid's wife?" said Angel. "The truth, of course," said his father. "I rather wanted to say we enjoyed the mead and the black puddings very much. She is a kind, jolly sort of body, and is sure to ask me directly I return." "You can't, if you do not," Mr. Clare answered lucidly. "Ah, no, though that mead was a drop of pretty tipple." "Ah, what?" said Cuthbert and Felix both. "Oh, it's an expression they use down at Talbothes," replied Angel, blushing. He felt that his parents were right in their practice, if wrong in their want of sentiment, and said no more. So we can see the difference in opinions, we can see the difference in perspectives. Whereas Angel is happy to present those gifts to the family, he is looking forward to them, you see, using them. We notice that the family is disconcerted, and we also notice that the snobbery of the mother of Angel and the snobbery of the father of Angel. The mother gives away the pudding to a family of poor children, and she declares that the wine that is sent is not suitable for them to be served on the table at their place, and she has put it there only in the emergency kit for aid. So we also notice that the brothers, they are also disconcerted about that, and Angel is really hurt by that. However, he thinks and he believes that in their own context, whatsoever their practice is, that is right. Well, when it comes to important critical discussion points with reference to this chapter, it is important to notice that the purpose of the chapter is to provide us some more knowledge about Angel. So we learn more about Angel, we learn about his perspective, we learn about his family's perspective as well, and we come to know about the gap between him and his family that is increasing. Another important thing that I would like to point out with reference to this chapter is Hardy's satire on social and religious institutions. Claire's family, particularly the parents, hold very strict religious and moral views at the expense of courtesy or consideration. Their own morality is shallow, but they want Angel to voice the family's displeasure at the supposedly immoral gift that the Cricks sent to their family. Also, Angel's father has very strict expectations for Angel, particularly with reference to the type of woman, I'm sorry, this is a typo, this is woman of course, he will marry. Reverend Claire demands that Angel marry a woman such as Mercy Shant, who has the proper religious beliefs. This brings us to chapter 26 of the novel. And what we notice in this chapter is that after prayers that evening, Angel and his father discuss Angel's marriage prospects. The Clares hope Angel will marry Mercy Shant, a pious neighbor girl, and they expect Angel to understand the importance of Christian piety in a wife. Again, what we come across is a very traditional, conservative and narrow view of religion and of social setups. When Angel mentions marriage, Reverend Claire suggests Mercy Shant, but Angel says that it would be more practical to have a woman who can work as a farmer. And I think when he says this, he is logically right, because in the context where he wants to take farming as his profession, that kind of woman would suit him. Angel mentions that he has found a possible wife, and Mrs. Clare asks if she is from a respectable family. Angel asserts that a wife who understands farm life would also be good for him, and he also tells about Tess and reassures them about her religious sincerity. Finally, the family agrees to meet her. Angel's father also tells Angel that he has saved the money he would have needed for his college education, and since Angel did not go to college, he is willing to give it to Angel to buy land and to set up his farm and to go ahead with his life. Before Angel leaves, his father tells him about his effort to convert the local populace and mentions his failed efforts to tame a young miscreant named Alec D'Urberville. Angel's dislike for old families increases with this. A very important aspect of this reference to Alec by the father of Angel is that again Alec is going to be there. Once again, what we thought that Alec's part or his chapter is over, it is not, and once again, to the amazement of the reader, he is brought back. Well, when it comes to critical discussion points with reference to this chapter, I would say in this chapter we get to know Claire's family more. We also notice the irony that Angel places Tess on a very high pedestal. As he talks to his parents concerning Tess, we realize how little knowledge Angel actually has concerning Tess Durbeyfield. Angel speaks of Tess in abstract and idealistic terms, claiming that she is full of actualized poetry, but unable to produce any direct evidence of her morality or accomplishments. As readers, since we have the knowledge of the past of Tess, we find it ironic when he praises Tess for an unblemished morality that starkly contrasts with her actual past. Well, there is some foreshadowing, and the theme of fate is hinted at. Alec comes back to the scene. This mention is not haphazard, rather it has a purpose. It serves as a reminder of Alec's presence in the novel, and of course it also foreshadows his later return to prominence. This also illustrates the theme of fate. As Alec met Tess by chance, only to return to her life, the chance encounter between Reverend Clare and Alec d'Urberville suggests that Alec's role in the lives of Tess Durbeyfield and Angel Clare will become crucial once again. This brings us to chapter 27 of the novel. What we see is that Angel returns to the dairy from his family place. He comes to see Tess and finds her just awakening from her afternoon nap. He is very glad. He has introduced her already to her to his parents in her absence, so now he asks her to marry him. Tess replies that she loves him but that she cannot marry. She declares that she cannot be his wife, and she claims that the reason is that his father is a parson and his mother wouldn't want her to marry him. He tries, however, to satisfy her by telling her that he has discussed the matter with his parents. As Tess does not agree yet, he says that he will give her time to think it over, but she replies again that the marriage is impossible. We notice that in the coming days, Angel continues to try to persuade her, और हम ये भी देखेंगे कि Tess would continue avoiding her. Soon Tess, however, realizes that she loves him too strongly to stick to her refusal. और फिर हम देखेंगे कि finally she would give in and she would accept his proposal. Talking about this chapter from a critical perspective, I would say the chapter is mainly devoted to a shift from the obstacles to the marriage to the romance between Tess and Angel, as Angel is back to the dairy. We also notice that Tess is in a fix. She cannot decide whether she should accept this offer of marriage or not. She cannot tell Angel about her past because he would reject her then, while she cannot keep it as a secret as he would inevitably learn about her past someday. So she is caught up between the devil and the deep sea. She is in a fix. वो जिसको कहते हैं ना आगे कुआं पीछे खाई. This is a situation that is for her. Without much development in plot, the story moves on, and we go to the next chapter, that is chapter 28. Tess's refusal does not permanently daunt Angel. In the early fall, Angel again asks Tess to marry him. Tess still feels that she cannot marry Angel because of the implications of her past indiscretions, and she's not in a position to share all that with him. He asks Tess if she loves another man, but she says that this is not the reason for her refusal, and she says that it is for his own good. She also wonders that he had not yet discovered her past. On the other hand, Angel still believes that Tess is objecting only because of her low social status, and he hopes that she will accept soon enough. Tess believes that she must tell Angel about her lineage and her dark past, but she hesitates. She does not have the courage to do so and resolves to tell him later. Here is the opening text of chapter 28. Her refusal, though unexpected, did not permanently daunt Clare. His experience of women was great enough for him to be aware that the negative often meant nothing more than the preface to the affirmative. And it was little enough for him not to know that in the manner of the present negative there lay a great expectation to the delayings of coyness. That she had already permitted him to make love to her he read as an additional assurance, not fully trowing that in the fields and pastures to sigh gratis is by no means deemed waste, lovemaking being there more often accepted inconsiderately and for its own sweet sake than in the cracking, anxious homes of the ambitious, where a girl's craving for an establishment paralyzed her healthy thought for passion as an end. Tess, why did you say no in such a positive way? He asked her in the course of a few days. She started. Don't ask me, I told you why. Partly, I'm not good enough, not worthy enough. How? Not fine lady enough? Yes, something like that, murmured she. Your friends would scorn me. Indeed, you mistake them, my father and mother. As for my brothers, I don't care. He clasped his fingers behind her back to keep her from slipping away. Now you didn't mean it, sweet. I'm sure you did not. You have made me so restless that I cannot read or play or do anything. I am in no hurry, Tess, but I want to know, to hear from your own warm lips that you will someday be mine. Anytime you may choose, but someday. The text continues. She could only shake her head and look away from him. Claire regarded her attentively, counted the characters of her face as if they had been hieroglyphics. The denial seemed real. Then I ought not to hold you in this way, ought I? I have no right to you, no right to seek out where you are or walk with you. Honestly, Tess, do you love any other man? How can you ask, she said with continued self-suppression. I almost know that you don't. But then, why do you repulse me? I don't repulse you, she said. I like you. To tell me you love me, and you may always tell me so as you go about with me and never offend me. But you will not accept me as a husband. Ah, that's different. It is for your good indeed, my dearest. Oh, believe me, it is only for your sake I don't like to give myself the great happiness of promising to be yours in that way, because I'm sure I ought not to do it. But you will make me happy. Ah, you think so, but you don't know. So there is a long argument, and Tess continuously says that it is for his own benefit that she doesn't want to marry him, whereas Angel does not agree to that and says that this marriage would make him happy. However, Tess does not agree to that. This brings us to chapter 29. There was a gossip all around in the town about a failed marriage. A man named Jack Dollop married a widow expecting to partake of her substantial dowry, only to discover that her financial stability and income vanishes as a result of the marriage. So most of the people at the dairy believed that the widow was wrong to deceive Jack Dollop of this fact, and that she should have been completely truthful with him before marrying. This widespread opinion makes Tess nervous again about her past. She wonders whether she should reveal her past to Angel or not. This can be a comedy for her fellow workers as they talked about the marriage of Jack and that widow, but for Tess it is a tragedy. Tess refuses Angel once again out of the same fear, and dairyman Crick asks Angel to go to the station, whereas Tess consents to accompany him. Without much development in terms of plot and structure, the chapter gives way to the next chapter, that is chapter 30. However, before we start exploring chapter 30, some important discussion points with reference to this chapter, that is chapter 29, are as follows. The story of Jack Dollop's wife makes Tess feel nervous again about her predicament. Why? Because she feels guilty, so the theme of guilt comes in. The story of Jack raises questions for Tess again to whether she should tell Angel about her past or she should not tell him about her past and her now dead child. While it is a source of gossip for others, the story disturbs the conscience of Tess very much, and she thinks of it as a tragedy. However, what we notice is that she nevertheless appears ready to accept the idea that she may rightfully withhold this information from Angel. We as readers can sense that now withholding this information may lead to a more disastrous situation in future when Angel would come to know about her past in a less favorable circumstances. However, what we notice about Tess is that despite the maturity that she has gained through the times, she is yet not mature enough to tell Angel the truth there and then to avoid any complications further in her future. With this we come to chapter 30, and in chapter 30 we see Tess and Angel travel together on the carriage to the station. Tess casually talks about little things. She wonders about the various Londoners who will drink the milk that they are supplying. Angel takes the opportunity to ask Tess once again to marry him. Tess finally decides to tell her story, and she begins to tell Angel her history. As they are taking care of some chores, Angel, by the way, mentions to Tess that they are near the ancestral territory of the ancient D'Urbervilles. She takes the opportunity to tell Angel that she descends from the same family, that is of the D'Urbervilles. She is surprised to know that he is pleased at knowing all this. Actually, Angel realizes that her descent from noble blood will make her more acceptable in the eyes of his family. At last, Tess agrees to marry him and she begins to weep. Tess asks if she may write to her mother, and when Angel learns she is from Marlet, he remembers where he has been, where he has seen her before, and he is reminded of the May Day when they did not dance together. Please look at the opening text of chapter 30. In the diminishing daylight, they went along the level roadway through the meads, which stretched away into grey miles and were backed in the extreme edge of distance by the swarthy and abrupt slopes of Agdon Heath. On its summit stood clumps and stretches of fir trees whose notched tips appeared like battlemented towers crowning black-fronted castles of enchantment. Notice the art of painting the pictures of the scenes as Hardy exhibits here. They were so absorbed in the sense of being close to each other that they did not begin talking for a long while, the silence being broken only by the clucking of the milk in the tall cans behind them. The lane they followed was so solitary that the hazelnuts had remained on the boughs till they slipped from their shells, and the blackberries hung in heavy clusters. Every now and then Angel would fling the lash of his whip round one of these, pluck it off and give it to his companion. So in this natural, beautiful background, they are moving together. The dull sky soon began to tell its meaning by sending down herald drops of rain, and the stagnant air of the day changed into a fitful breeze which played about their faces. The quick silvery glaze on the rivers and pools vanished. From broad mirrors of light they changed to lustreless sheets of lead, with a surface like a rasp. But that spectacle did not affect her preoccupation. Her countenance, a natural carnation slightly embrowned by the season, had deepened its tinge with the beating of the raindrops, and her hair, which the pressure of the cow's flanks had, as usual, caused to tumble down from its fastenings and stray beyond the curtain of her calico bonnet, was made clammy by the moisture, till it hardly was better than seaweed. "I ought not to have come, I suppose," she murmured, looking at the sky. "I'm sorry for the rain," said he, "but how glad I am to have you here." She mounted again beside her lover with a mute obedience characteristic of impassioned natures at times, and when they had wrapped themselves up over head and ears in the sailcloth again, they plunged back into the now thick night. Tess was so receptive that the few minutes of contact with the whirl of material progress lingered in her thought. "Londoners will drink it at their breakfasts tomorrow, won't they?" she asked. "The strange people that we have never seen." "Yes, I suppose they will, though not as we send it, when its strength has been lowered so that it may not get up into their heads. Noble men and noble women, ambassadors and centurions, ladies and tradeswomen, and babies who have never seen a cow. Well, yes, perhaps, particularly centurions, who don't know anything of us and where it comes from, or think how we two drove miles across the moor tonight in the rain that it might reach them in time. We didn't drive entirely on account of these precious Londoners. We drove a little on our own on account of that anxious matter which you will, I'm sure, set at rest, dear Tess. Now permit me to put it in the way. You belong to me already, you know. Your heart, I mean, does it not?" So again he's going to ask the same question of whether she would marry him or not. "You know as well as I." "Oh, yes, yes." So this is the eager answer of Tess. "Then if your heart does, why not your hand? My only reason was on account of you, on account of a question. I have something to tell you. But suppose it to be entirely for my happiness and my worldly convenience also." "Oh yes, if it is for your happiness and worldly convenience. But my life before I came here I want." So you see, she wants to tell the truth. "Well, it is for my convenience as well as my happiness. If I have a very large farm, either English or colonial, you will be invaluable as a wife to me, better than a woman out of the largest mansion in the country. So please, please, dear Tessie, disabuse your mind of the feeling that you will stand in my way. So again, when she is going to tell the truth, he cuts and stops her from saying that, and reassures that she would be very, very important for him. But my history, I want you to know it. You must let me tell you. You will not like me so well. Tell if it you wish to, dearest, this precious history then. Yes, I was born at so and so Anno Domini. So you see, he is making fun of all this. He is taking it very non-seriously. But for her, it is a very, very serious matter. She says, I was born at Marlet. She said, catching at his words as a help, lightly as they were spoken, and I grew up there. So she started telling her history. And as I was in the 6th standard when I left school, and then said I had great aptness and should make a good teacher, so it was settled that I should be one. But there was trouble in my family. Father was not very industrious and he drank a little. Yes, yes, poor child, nothing new. He pressed her more closely to his side. अभी तक एंजल ने उसकी कहानी को बहुत सीरियसली नहीं लिया. And then there is something very unusual about it, about me. I was. Tess's breath quickened. She is nervous to reveal the truth. Yes, dearest, never mind. I am not a Derbyfield, but a d'Urberville, a descendant of the same family as those that owned the old house we passed. And we are all gone to nothing. So she reveals her lineage. A Derbyfield, indeed. And is that all the trouble, dear Tess? Yes, she answered faintly. Well, why should I love you less after knowing this? I was told by the dairyman that you hated old families. He laughed. Well, it is true in one sense. I do hate the aristocratic principle of of blood before anything else, and so do think that as reasoners, the only pedigrees we ought to respect are those spiritual ones of the wise and virtuous without regard to corporal paternity. But I am extremely interested in this news. You can have no idea how interested I am. Are you not interested yourself in being one of that well-known line? So, ironically, what she thinks that he would be unhappy about this connection of Tess with the d'Urberville family, but ironically what she notices is that he's quite happy about that. Anyhow, the reality is, when it comes to critical discussion, that Angel accepts the history of Tess's family very easily. Instead of creating a relief, it further generates tension because we notice that Angel frames the information about her d'Urberville connections as greater evidence of Tess's perfection. Now, Tess becomes the most suitable match for him, being simultaneously the simple and decent milkmaid and a respectable noble lady. But we as readers start waiting for the inevitable revelation about her past life, because the truth that she has told, that Tess has told to Angel, is only half a truth. The rest of the half is yet to be revealed, and Angel doesn't know anything about that. This brings us to chapter 31 of the novel, and what we see in it is that Tess writes a letter to her mother the next day seeking her advice regarding marriage. By the end of the week, she receives a reply from her mother as well, and Mrs. Derbyfield has immediately written back advising her daughter not to tell Angel about her past. Let us see what the letter says. This is the letter of the mother of Tess that she has written to her. Dear Tess, J writes these few lines hoping they will find you well as they leave me at present. Thank God for it. Dear Tess, we are all glad to hear that you are going really to be married soon. But with respect to your question, Tess, J say between ourselves, quite private but very strong, that on no account do you say a word of your bygone trouble to him. J didn't tell everything to your father, he being so proud on account of his respectability, which perhaps you are intended in the same. Many a woman, some of the highest in the land, have had a trouble in their time, and why should you trumpet yours when others don't trumpet theirs? So, as a more practical, more matured woman, what her mother advises her is not to tell her past to to Angel, and she says that a lot of women have that kind of problems, but they do not announce those, so why should she do so? She continues writing, no girl would be such a fool, especially as it is so long ago and not your fault at all. Jay shall answer the same if you ask me 50 times. Besides, you must bear in mind that knowing it to be your childish nature to tell all that's in your heart, so simple, Jay made you promise me never to let it out by word or deed, having your welfare in my mind. So she tries to take a promise from Tess that neither through her actions nor through her words she would ever give a clue about her past. And she says, you most solemnly did that promise, it going from this door. Jay have not named either that question or your coming marriage to your father, as he would blab it everywhere. Poor simple man. My dear Tess, keep up your spirits, and we mean to send you a hogshead of cider for your wedding, knowing there is not much in your parts, and thin sour stuff what there is. So no more at present, and with kind love to your young man. From your affectee mother, J. Durbeyfield. So she strictly asks her not to reveal the truth to Angel. Let's see what else happens in chapter 31. What is important is the response of Tess on receiving the letter. As Mrs. Durbeyfield advises Tess against the ethically sound choice of telling Angel about her past, Mrs. Durbeyfield's advice, however, stems from her love and from her concern for her daughter Tess. Like any other mother, Mrs. Durbeyfield doesn't want anything to interfere with her daughter's making any advantageous marriage. She wants to see her daughter happy. Tess is relieved to receive this advice from her mother, but she knows deep down that she cannot follow it. Tess's conscience troubles her. Here is some part of the text. Her mother didn't see life as Tess saw it. That haunting episode of bygone days was to her mother but a passing accident. But perhaps her mother was right as to the course to be followed. Whatever she might be in her reasons, silence seemed, on the face of it, best for her adored one's happiness. Silence it should be. Anyhow, following the advice of her mother, she decides not to tell anything to Angel about her past. Here is some part of text that is given on the screen in blue. She dismissed the past, trod upon it and put it out, as one treads on a coal that is smouldering and dangerous. She had not known that men could be so disinterested, chivalrous, protective in their love for women as he. And we find Tess luxuriate throughout the month of October, once she has decided that she would not tell the truth to Angel and once she consents to marry him. Here is some part of the text that shows how Tess is in the state of perfect bliss. Thus, during this October month of wonderful afternoons, they roved along the meads by creeping paths which followed the brinks of trickling tributary brooks, hopping across by little wooden bridges to the other side and back again. They were never out of the sound of some purling weir whose buzz accompanied their own murmuring, while the beams of the sun, almost as horizontal as the mead itself, formed a pollen of radiance over the landscape. They saw tiny blue fogs in the shadows of trees and hedges all the time that there was bright sunshine elsewhere. The sun was so near the ground and the sward so flat that the shadows of Claire and Tess would stretch a quarter of a mile ahead of them, like two long fingers pointed afar to where the green alluvial ridges abutted against the slope slides of the vale. So in the backdrop of the perfect scenery, they were in a perfect state of bliss. Chapter 31 continues, and we notice that Tess is still in a conflict whether to tell Angel the truth or not. One evening, Tess abruptly tells Angel that she is not worthy of him, but Angel tells her that he will not have her speak as such. When Angel asks her to finalize the date of their wedding, she again asserts that she is reluctant to change things and she wants to continue in life the same way, without disconnecting herself from Angel, continuing continuing his assertions of love for her, but not marrying him. Later on, when Angel announces their engagement to Mr. Crick in front of the dairymaids, their joyous reactions really impress Tess, and she feels that she can finally express her happiness, but she soon feels unworthy of Angel again, so we can see her in the fix. Tess decides that she will finally tell him about her past. So the point where the chapter again comes to an end is where once again she thinks that she would tell Angel about her past and about her child. Well, dear students, here is some text that tells us about the inner conflict of Tess. One evening, Tess and Claire were obliged to sit indoors, keeping house, all the other occupants of the domicile being away. As they talked, she looked thoughtfully up at him and met his two appreciative eyes. "I'm not worthy of you. No, I'm not," she burst out, jumping up from her low stool as though appalled at his homage and the fullness of her own joy thereat. Claire, deeming the whole basis of her excitement to be that which was only the smaller part of it, said, "I won't have you speak like it, dear Tess. Distinction does not consist in the facile use of a contemptible set of conventions, but in being numbered among those who are true and honest and just and pure and lovely and of good report, as you are, my Tess." She struggled with the sob in her throat. How often had that string of excellences made her young heart ache in church of later years, and how strange that he should have cited them now. "Why didn't you stay and love me when I was 16? On the green? Oh, why didn't you, she said impatiently, clasping her hands. Angel began to comfort and reassure her, thinking to himself, truly enough, what a creature of moods she was, and how careful he would have to be of her when she depended for her happiness entirely on him. "Ah, why didn't I stay?" he said. "That is just what I feel. If I had only known, but you must not be so bitter in your regret. Why should you be?" Abibi, Angel cannot understand the extent of the bitterness of the situation, so he just takes it on the surface level. With the woman's instinct to hide, she diverged hastily. "I should have had 4 years more of your heart than I can ever have now." अब वो फिर बात को घुमा देती है और you see she is in a conflict whether to tell or not. अभी बताना चाह रही थी, अभी इस moment में she again loses courage and she is just giving a twist to the situation by saying that she wanted to have him as a lover earlier because this way she could have him as a lover for 4 more years than now. And she says, "I should have had so much longer happiness." It was no mature woman with a long dark vista of intrigue behind her who was tormented thus, but a girl of simple life, not yet 21, who had been caught during her days of immaturity like a bird in a springe. To calm herself the more completely, she rose from her little stool and left the room, overturning the stool with her skirts as she went. And this brings us to chapter 32. Tess seems to want to stay in a state of perpetual state of happiness with Angel and wants to delay marriage. Look at the text. This penitential mood kept her from naming the wedding day. The beginning of November found its date still in abeyance, though he asked her at the most tempting time. But Tess's desire seemed to be for a perpetual betrothal in which everything should remain as it was then. They start preparing for the wedding, although wedding is planned near the end of the year. Angel hopes to spend that time visiting a flour mill at Wellbridge to see its working so that he could plan for his future. There he stays at a farmhouse that had once been a D'Urberville mansion. Angel buys Tess clothes for their wedding as well. And Tess is relieved when Angel quietly takes out a marriage license rather than publicizing his intent to marry Tess. Here is some text from chapter 32 that is about Tess and her thoughts. Returning from one of these dark walks, they reached a great gravel cliff immediately over the levels where they stood still and listened. The water was now high in the streams, squirting through the weirs and tinkling under culverts. The smallest gullies were all full. There was no taking shortcuts anywhere, and foot passengers were compelled to follow the permanent ways. From the whole extent of the invisible vale came a multitudinous intonation. It forced upon their fancy that a great city lay between them, below them, and that the murmur was the vociferation of its populace. It seems like tens of thousands of them, said Tess, holding public meetings in their marketplaces, arguing, preaching, quarrelling, snobbing, groaning, praying and cursing. Claire was not particularly heeding. Did Crick speak to you today, dear, about his not wanting much assistance during the winter months? No. The cows are going dry rapidly. Yes, 6 or 7 went to the straw barton yesterday and 3 the day before, making nearly 20 in the straw already. Ah, is it that the farmers don't want my help for the coming days? So at this point again we notice Angel taking the opportunity, and he said, well, you love me and have agreed to marry me, and hence there follows a thirdly, when shall the day be? I like living like this. This is the answer of Tess. But I must think of starting in business on my own hook with the new year or a little later, and before I get involved in the multifarious details of my new position, I should like to have secured my partner. So he insists that they should get married before he starts his own business. But she timidly answered, to talk quite practically, wouldn't it be best not to marry till after that? So she is trying to delay the marriage. Though I can't bear the thought of you going away and leaving me here, she says. Of course you cannot, and it is not best in this case. I want you to help me in many ways in making my start. When shall it be? He again persists. Why not a fortnight from now? No, she said, becoming grave. I have so many things to think of first. So again she is hesitant, she is reluctant. But he drew her gently nearer to him. The reality of marriage was startling when it loomed so near. She is terrified of the fact that Angel wants the marriage to take place very soon. This brings us to chapter 33 of the novel, and what we notice is that Angel wishes to spend a day with Tess away from the dairy before the wedding. Thus, they spend a day in the nearest town on Christmas Eve. While out shopping, Angel and Tess encounter a man from Alec d'Urberville's village who criticizes Tess and denies her virginity. Angel becomes angry and strikes the man, but when the man apologizes, Angel gives him some money. Tess feels very guilty, and resultantly that night she writes a confession and slips the letter under Angel's door. Next morning she is surprised to see that Angel's behavior towards her has not changed, and he even does not mention the letter. Before we move forward, let us read some text in this regard. Well, here is a text that shows how Tess writes the truth to Angel. Declare the past to him by the word of mouth she couldn't, but there was another way. She sat down and wrote on the 4 pages of a note sheet a succinct narrative of those events of 3 or 4 years ago, put it into an envelope and directed it to Claire. Then, lest the flesh should again be weak, she crept upstairs without any shoes and slipped the note under his door. So what we notice is that she doesn't have the courage to give it directly to Angel, so she slipped it under the door into his room. Her night was a broken one, as it well might be, and she listened for the first faint noise overhead. It came as usual. He descended as usual. She descended. He met her at the bottom of the stairs and kissed her. Surely it was as warmly as ever. So next morning she was surprised to see him behaving as he used to behave before this. He looked a little disturbed and worn, she thought. But he said not a word to her about her revelation, even when they were alone. Could he have had it? Now she is not sure whether he had it or not, the letter. Unless he began the subject, she felt that she could say nothing. So the day passed, and it was evident that whatever he thought, he meant to keep it to himself. Yet he was frank and affectionate as before. Could it be that her doubts were childish, that he forgave her, that he loved her for what she was, and just as she was, and smiled at her disquiet as at a foolish nightmare? Had he really received her note? She glanced into his room and could see nothing of it. It might be that he forgave her, but even if he had not received it, she had a sudden enthusiastic trust that he surely would forgive her. Now she is what I would say, she is, you see, putting herself into the same illusion again, that either he has forgiven her after reading the letter, or even if he has not yet found the letter, whenever he would get it, he would forgive her. Every morning and night he was the same, and thus New Year's Eve broke, the wedding day. Now the wedding day has approached finally, and yet nothing is known to Tess in terms of how far he knows about the truth, whether he has read the letter or not. Chapter 33, The Wedding. On the wedding day, Tess finds in Angel's room the note under the carpet, unopened and never seen. Tess ascertains that it slipped under the carpet and that Angel never saw it. On the morning of the wedding, Tess again tries to tell Angel about her past, but he cuts her off, saying that there will be time for such revelations after they are married. The dairyman and his wife accompany them to the church, and they get married there. As they are leaving for the ceremony, however, a rooster crows in the mid-afternoon backdrop and creates a kind of ill omen. Here is some text from this chapter about the letter that she wrote. Her perception that Angel's bearing towards her still remained in no whit altered by her own communication rendered Tess guiltily doubtful if he could have received it or not. She rose from breakfast before he had finished and hastened upstairs. It had occurred to her to look once more into the queer gaunt room which had been Claire's den, or rather airy, for so long in climbing the ladder. So she stood at the open door of the apartment, regarding and pondering. She stooped to the threshold of the doorway where she had pushed in the note 2 or 3 days earlier in such excitement. The carpet reached close to the sill, and under the edge of the carpet she discerned the faint white margin of the envelope containing her letter to him, which he obviously had never seen, owing to her having it in her haste thrust it beneath the carpet as well as beneath the door. Now what we notice is again fate is at work. अब ये इसको तकदीर का काम ही कहेंगे, that again in a hurry she just thrust the letter inside the room, putting it beneath the carpet, and thus Angel couldn't find it. With a feeling of faintness she withdrew the letter. There it was, sealed up, just as it had left her hands. The mountain had not yet been removed. She could not let him read it now, because now the wedding day has reached. The house being in full bustle of preparation, and descending to her own room, she destroyed the letter there. She was so pale when he saw her again that he felt quite anxious. The incident of the misplaced letter she had jumped at as if it prevented a confession, but she knew in her conscience that it did not. There was still time. Yet everything was in a stir. There was coming and going. All had to dress, the dairyman and Mrs. Crick having been asked to accompany them as witnesses, and reflection or deliberate talk was well nigh impossible. The only minute Tess could get to be alone with Claire was when they met upon the landing. And she said, she said to Angel that she wanted to reveal something. Let's look at the text. I am so anxious to talk to you. I want to confess all my faults and blunders, she said with attempted lightness. No, no, we can't have faults talked of. You must be deemed perfect today at least, my sweet. He cried. We shall have plenty of time hereafter. I hope to talk over our failings. I will confess mine at the same time. But it would be better for me to do it now, I think, so that you could not say. And again, he interrupts. Well, my quixotic one, you shall tell me anything, say, as soon as we are settled in our lodging, not now. I too will tell you my faults then, but do not let us spoil the day with them. They will be excellent matter for a dull time. So he again urges her not to talk about all this. Then you don't wish me to, dearest. I do not, Tessie, really. The hurry of dressing and starting left no time for more than this. And so they start getting ready for the marriage, and you see somehow the matter is delayed once again. When it comes to looking at this chapter critically, a couple of things are very important. Number one, Tess averts two disasters in this chapter. For the first time since leaving Mallet, Tess confronts her past when a Trantridge man recognizes her and believes her to be a woman with a tarnished reputation. This is the first threat that she comes across after leaving her hometown Mallet. Although Angel defends her, he does so without conceiving that the man's accusations against Tess may contain any truth. He blindly believes in the purity of Tess. The second disaster that Tess averts is when Angel does not receive the letter. Tess thinks that he has read it and has forgiven her, whereas the letter never reached him, and even when later on she tried to make another effort to tell him, out of the hurry to get ready and to go to the church for wedding, he stops her by saying that they can talk about their follies later on, not being able to consider the extent of the folly that she wanted to talk about. When it comes to the use of symbols, the appearance of an afternoon crow is a conventional sign of foreshadowing ill omens, and in the context of the society where Hardy lived and where the novel is set, it was considered to be a real bad omen. And when you see here in the novel, on the wedding day when they are leaving the dairy, afternoon crow, as it crows, it really creates a kind of foreshadowing. It foreshadows the upcoming unpleasant happenings in the lives of Tess and Angel. In the same way, Tess's vision of the D'Urberville coach foreshadows tragedy particular to her ancestors, as we would look at it in the coming chapters. This brings us to chapter 34, and what we see is, after the wedding, the couple travels to the old D'Urberville mansion at Wellbridge, where they will have a few days to themselves before the farmer returns. There, two life-size portraits of D'Urberville ladies frighten Tess, for she can see her resemblance with them. Tess receives a package from Angel's father containing some jewelry, such as necklace with pendant, bracelets and earrings that Angel's grandmother had left for his future wife some years ago. The newlywed couple enjoy a happy moment, which is shattered when the man arrives from the dairy with the news. As he brings the luggage about Tess's friends, she is told by this man that after the wedding, Retty attempted suicide and Marion became an alcoholic. Tess feels guilty about her fate, thinking herself undeserving, and Angel promises to tell Tess all of his faults. Angel admits how in London he plunged into a 48-hour dissipation with a stranger, and he is ready to take the blame for that. Tess decides to tell Angel about her sin. She forgives him for what he did, and she enters into her own story about Alec D'Urberville's and its results. This is the time when she reveals all this to Angel. Here is the ending part of phase the 4th, where we would see finally Tess confesses. The text goes as, "She sat down again. Their hands were still joined. The ashes under the grate were lit by the fire vertically like a torrid waste. Imagination might have beheld last day luridness in this red cold glow which fell on his face and hand and hers, peering into the loose hair about her brow and firing the delicate skin underneath. A large shadow of her shape rose upon the wall and ceiling. She bent forward, at which each diamond on her neck gave a sinister wink like a tord's." Please notice the use of imagery. The diamond bracelet, the diamond you see necklace that she is wearing around her neck. This necklace is given by Angel's parents. It has just received by Tess as a gift. She is wearing that. However, the diamonds, as they shine in that light of the fireplace, they just look like Todd, in a sinister way, winking at her. And pressing her forehead against his temple, she entered on her story of acquaintance with Alec d'Urberville and its results, murmuring the words without flinching and with her eyelids drooping down. So this is the context in which she confesses the whole truth in front of Angel. And Hardy announces the end of phase the 4th at this point. Now that we have completed our readings through phase 4, I would give overall comments on phase 4. Fourth phase brings us the consequences of their love. Angel and Tess marry and she confesses her past. Aside from the repeated instances of supernatural effect and mystical ill omen, such as the cock crowing in the afternoon and the creaky old mansion, the real conflict in this situation is again moral. Between Tess's desire to be happily loved by Angel and her conscious obligation to tell him about her past. Because Tess has such a strong instinct for self-delight, she is able to delay and resist her conscience through the whole month of October. Since Tess has an even stronger sense of moral duty, however, she cannot resist it forever, and she knows she has to tell it someday. As she begins her story, murmuring the words without flinching and with her eyelids drooping down, the phase ends, leading to yet another phase that inshallah ta'ala we would cover in the upcoming session, where we would look at what is the reaction of Angel to the confessions that are made by Tess. This is the point where I end our today's session, and before I close, I would just quickly share a review of today's lesson. We started phase 4, that is titled as the consequence. We covered chapters 25 to 34 and thus finished phase 4. We read important parts of the text, we explored the themes, we explored the development in the relationship between Angel and Tess. We noticed the conflict in Tess and how she was in a fix whether to tell the truth to Angel or not. We saw her attempts to reveal the truth. We also saw Angel counteracting by stopping her to tell the truth in some ways, where either he would be in a hurry or he would take it in a light mood, etc. We saw the fate at work, where finally, with all her courage mustered up, when she wrote a letter to Angel and dropped it in his room, it crept under the carpet and he never received it. She yet made another attempt before they went out to the church for marriage. However, it was not again successful, and Angel didn't listen to what she wanted to tell. Now that they are married and they are in that, interestingly I would say, in that belongs to the d'Urbervilles, the old mansion, in that creaky, mysterious background, where Angel confesses his follies of the past and his the deeds, the ill deeds in terms of morality. We notice that Tess takes the opportunity to tell her story regarding Alec and sorrow, and as she tells the story with the confession made by Tess, the phase comes to an end. What is the reaction of Angel to all this confession? This is what we would see inshallah in the next session, that is based on phase 5. Till then I close today's session. Allah Hafiz. Thank you very much.